So we are doing Venom, which you've probably seen by now on the thumbnail, but here is what we're looking at, and I can show you here. This is the first, what we're starting out with is just the body and the head and his tongue. So that pretty much takes up the whole build plate. Like I said, I can get like his legs and arms maybe on a build plate each, but I had to do a lot of work to get them in there. The base is probably going to take like almost 3 or 4 print sessions because the base is so massive. So this is going to be by far my biggest job yet, but I'm pretty excited about it. So let's see how these turned out and how, if we're off to a good start or not. I kind of wanted to start with something big just to see. I mean, if this whole torso fails after a 7-hour print, I don't have it's not up there anymore, but this is going to take 7 hours to print this. So this is a good barometer on how this project is going to go. All right, the first print is done. A whopping 7 hours and 52 minutes, almost 8 hours, but that gives you an idea just how big this beast is. Let's go ahead and take it off the plate and check it out. So I don't see any issues. It looks pretty solid. Nothing jumps out, any lines or failed parts. Head looks good, tongue looks good. That is a good sign for this project, that all printed flawlessly. That was mainly that's like the biggest one chunk. I mean, at this point, if like a arm or something fails, it's less of a big deal or waste of resin or something if this just has to be done again. So that's solid. Let's get it off the plate. Trying a new like neck thing that hangs off my neck so I can do this freehand. So let me know how this turns out. Yeah, now I just gotta try to keep the action centered. Let's go ahead and get this thing off of here. All right, those came off easy enough. There we go. All right. Okay, so sorry that took forever. This thing had a lot of, these supports were on there. You'll see here that I hollowed it out, so the supports actually run all the way through it. So I think that's why the supports were kind of hard, because some of these were really up in there that we got to get out so that the arm can eventually go in. There we go. All right, so we'll go ahead and dump that in here into the wash tank. There we go, that's more like it. So, get yourself a good cut there. So here's the turtles I've done before in a few of my other videos, and this is Venom's body. So that gives you an idea how big this statue is going to be. Here's what we've got so far. And man, look how this is now cured. It was a little hard curing the chest because it's a little bit bigger than the area. I kept having to kind of move it around, but look at how much detail we got in that print. It lines up pretty good. You can see when we glue it, we'll try to force it as tight as possible. You got a little lines there in the tongue too where it meets, but for the most part, that's a flawless print so far and a good start to the project. All right, so this was the second attempt, and that is by far the tallest. We barely got that to fit. That used like every last inch of the build plate vertical limit to get that leg done that way. That was the only way I could do it. I couldn't lay it sideways because it was too long, but just got it in there. Had a little bit of snafu. I didn't do a good job of cleaning off the build plate. So when it went down to start, there was 2 little chunks of resin, like just little chunks like this, little bits that were stuck to the build plate. So when it went down to go all the way to the bottom, it cut a hole in my FEP, messed the whole thing up. So I had to clear it all out, dump it out, replace it, put a new film in, and start all over again. Here's what the mistaked ones from the other day. It just failed as soon as I tried because there was a hole, so it leaked through and just caused the whole mess. That's what happened. So I don't know if it works great with like myself and my ADHD, because like There are so many things that you have to check before you start anything. And if one of them is wrong, it can cause a lot of problems. I've already gone through like 3 different steps. I had to replace an LCD screen because I didn't do a good enough job and it ended up cracking a screen. So like it's teaching me about patience and just checking off all the boxes before I start the next project. But let's go ahead and check out these legs. Oh, also that is by far the longest print I've ever done. 12 hours and 41 minutes. 12 hours and 15 minutes essentially. And again, that was pretty much maxing out everything that we could use. Those last little bits were just barely touching into the liquid, but we got it. So I did have a slight problem getting this other leg off. It had so many supports because it was laying down vertically, so almost like the entire end was supports. I was getting it off and it just cracked right down the middle right here, but I think it'll be okay. I think we'll be able to just put some glue on it. Maybe we can put some green stuff or whatever over the seam, paint it. I think it'll be all right. I think we'll be able to pull it off. So we're gonna let these dry and then we'll cure them when they dry. All right, so we're out of the cure, and you'll notice there's still a few wet spots. These were really big in my cure machine, and they were really hard to get situated. They kept falling over, and they wouldn't work right. So what we're gonna do is we got this handy little UV pen light, which is good for just kind of spot curing some spots. So we're gonna put on some sunglasses, and we're just gonna use this to hit some of those spots that didn't quite get enough UV light. I'm just gonna hold it on there for, I don't know, maybe about a minute or so, just enough to just kind of get some of these little tacky spots cured. All right, next we're gonna go and try to fix this up and just put some super glue in there and just push that tight, see if we can't get that to kind of hold up. Enough to where we can kind of fix the crease and just get it passable so I don't have to print this entire leg again. So we're curing the hands now, and has anyone ever seen the movie Idle Hands? If you know, you know. Check it out. So far, all of Venom is complete. This gives you an idea just how big this base is going to be, too. Look at where the touch points are. It's honestly going to take probably more resin to print the base than it did to print him, but look at this. That is awesome. That is so cool. To compare, here is the statue that came with my Spider-Man 2 Special Edition compared with, oh no, shoot. All right, so I can't really start painting this guy yet because if you'll notice, I need to get some green stuff and seal up some of these line gaps, which kind of sucks. So he's gonna have to wait for now, but I'm itching to do some painting. So what we're gonna do is we got some parts of the base ready and primed, and I'm interested in doing this because I'm gonna do testing some theories. I think what I want to go for is a little bit of like a matte finish on Venom, and then we're going to dry brush some blue into him because he usually has some blue. But all of these little like veins or like symbiote lines, like all these raised up parts, I'm going to do it like a high gloss black so it kind of shows up differently. So I think that's what I want to do. So all of these will be all high gloss because they're just kind of like symbiote stuff. So we'll test that out a little bit. It also gives us a chance to do some work on some teeth and gums, and these like symbiote pieces are kind of nice to do some testing on some theories and stuff. So we got some Vallejo black that we will lay down as like our base coat. Here's like the purplish blue I got that we'll use on the body. We're not going to use that on the tentacles. And then somewhere here's our high gloss varnish that we'll put on afterwards. So, all right. Let's get some work done. All right, so quick update just on some work we're doing. Working just on this base, just doing some brickwork. Not much to see there, but spent a lot of effort on trying to make the teeth in this mouth look good. Like I said, not my strongest point, so I thought these little heads would be a good chance to kind of work on that. And I think it worked out pretty good. I put a white coat on the teeth and then did a little yellow at the gum line and then put a wash on it. Did some black wash on the gums there. So I think it turned out pretty good. What I'm about to do is throw on the gloss varnish over all this black stuff to make it look all slimy, like the symbiote inky stuff. We'll do it there too. See how it turns out. All right, so I think it turned out pretty good. It's pretty shiny. You can see there all the glistening on the teeth and the sliminess. This turned out really good. You can kind of see how it captures the light and looks nice and slimy. What we're gonna do next is do a little bit of this grime wash. And we're going to pretty much cover all of this to make it nice and grimy. Then we're going to come back over with a paper towel and just kind of soak up a lot of the heavy stuff, and hopefully it fills in all these little nooks and all these little divots and crannies. It really kind of makes this stone and all this work look nice and weathered. This will be kind of covered. You won't really see that, so we just didn't bother painting it. But there you go. Let's check that out. All right, so I'm just gonna take my grime and put it in my little popper here. If you don't know, these are great for doing your washes and stuff, because when it dries, you just pop it out. We're gonna take a bad brush. So just a kind of bad brush that we don't really care about. It's kind of bad. I'm just gonna take our grime and we're gonna grime it all up. We're gonna grime up everything. Cake it all up. Now we're just gonna take our paper towel and we're just gonna dab some of it off. And hopefully what that leaves behind is all these little nooks and divots and recesses will hold the wash. And we're gonna do the same with the block right here. I almost used all of it already. Careful not to get our symbiote bit there. All right, so it's been about an hour and you can see what we wanted to happen pretty much happened. So all these little details and blemishes on our brick have to just maintain a little bit of grit and grime. Makes the whole thing just look a little bit more real. All these little details show out because now there's just some black sitting in there. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy. All in all, I'm really happy with how this stuff turned out. It was kind of fun. There's a lot more of both of these things to go. There's a lot of tentacles and this gooey stuff. There's a lot more brick and stuff. So this was kind of a nice test session to see how some of these techniques that we're going to be doing a lot in the future would work out. So I'm happy with them both. It felt good to paint something because honestly, it's going to be a little bit of time before I can get to him because I need to get some green stuff to fill in the cracks. I need more resin to print the rest of the base. So it felt good to just get something painted, get something going, and look at that. All right. For me, it might be a while. For you guys, you get to move to the next phase right now. All right, so what I'm doing here, this is one of the cooler detail pieces on the model, which is like this broken statue. And I'm not quite dry brushing it, but it's almost like a reverse dry brush. I'm doing really thin coats because you see all these like porous details in the concrete, all these imperfections and cracks and little divots. I want to maintain that. I don't want to glob it with paint and fill all that in. So I'm going really light. Not quite a dry brush because I'm still covering it. But I want to try to maintain a lot of this kind of detail and almost make it look like, but the problem is there are some areas where I went too light and there's still a lot of black showing through within the primer. So I do need to go back and just lightly cover those up. Plus I need some ways to not touch it all the time. You can see where I've been, as I move it around, I touch it. I need like some of those stakes or something, but just trying to maintain a lot of the features. We're going to come back over and do a similar wash to how we did on the other part of the base, but I think this is going to be one of the more featured parts of it. So I want to give it that kind of like broken, cracked concrete. I want to maintain that detail, so I'm just going very light. There are some spots where I completely missed it. I went way too light, so just trying to maintain that layer, that depth and detail. Like the face looks really good. You can still see all the cracks and everything. It looks kind of distressed. So keep as much of that within the natural model as we can. And then of course we will come back over and do a heavy wash on it to kind of fill in and even more accentuate those nooks and crannies. But I think that's pretty good. We're gonna let that dry and then we're gonna come back with a wash. I just finished printing the next big chunk of this base, which is kind of just more, on this one we'll do pretty much more of the same that we've been doing with the rocks and the bricks and everything. This part, I think this is wood, so this will get a brown. And this, I'm guessing, is supposed to be like a stained glass, so I'm not sure how I'll do that. I'm going to have to look up some techniques. But that is what's next. And then I have the big base that comes in two parts, like the big actual bottom of the base. This thing's still leaking out resin. I've cured it like 20 times. is in the printer. Hopefully this week I can get both sides of the base done and we can actually get going on this. But while that's doing that, let's move to the next phase of actual Venom himself. All right, so on Venom here, you can see we've just got these gaps. I think we talked about this before, but gaps in the neck, gaps in the arm. So what I'm going to try to do is I went with this plastic putty as opposed to doing like green stuff like I talked about, which hopefully we can just put right into all these spots. I don't think I'm going to be able to glob enough of it to really fill in the part that broke, but it's going to be on the back of the model. I'm not terribly worried about it. If I'm still bothered by it, we can try to do some green stuff, but I'll see if I can't like just chunk this stuff up and build it up in there. That part looks bad too, so that part just turned out pretty bad. But we're gonna go ahead and just try to do some of these cracks. We'll take like a wet brush and kind of fill it and spread it out. And then when it dries, do a little bit of sanding on it, and he'll pretty much be ready to primer on there. So let's see if we can get this stuff to work. All right, so it actually did bunch up pretty good. There's a small spot in the middle where it's just really wide. I don't think I could get it, but we'll see how it happens when it hardens. We can sand it down and just fill that in a little bit. But props to the makers on this, the designers. Just about every seam, they put on a like bit of symbiote like vein stuff. So when it's cured and it gets painted, it'll just look like another, you know, thin line of symbiote webbing or whatever. So it easily hides a lot of these seams. So I think it'll look pretty good. We'll let it sit for a bit, dry, and then we'll sand it down some of the excess and see how it turned out. All right, so catching you up on a little bit, we got this part of the base. We did pretty much similar to what we did on the other part. Still a little bit more there, and we got some wood here and some stained glass that we got to do something with here. But all in all, again, I think it looks really good. But next we got to do some weathering, similar to what we did before. This, I think, still looks good. We're getting ready to do some weathering, so I need to get my black wash. Is it this one? Yep, that's it. And similar to what we did before, we're just going to cover it in black wash. This we're not ready quite yet because it still needs to dry a little bit. But we're going to cover in the black wash and then just use some paper towel, or if you have a sponge. I wish I had a sponge, but I don't really have a sponge that I could use, so I'm just going to use a paper towel to clean up all the mess. But we're pretty much going to cover this thing in black wash. I think I'm just going to break it up into these sections here just to make it a little bit easier. We'll do like, because I don't want it to dry before I get a chance to wipe it off. So we'll just go in these big sections. Kind of want to move a little kind of quick here. Don't want this to set before I get a chance to dry it up. So we're just going to do this kind of lower half here. All right. And we're just going to come in with our paper towel and soak up any of the excess that easily comes off. Again, just kind of hoping that it sits and collects in all the recesses, similar to how grime would in real life, kind of find those spots. Especially since this is the idea being this has like been knocked over and probably storming and stuff, so it should be pretty gunked up. Try to get a little more of it. There, you can already kind of see once it dries, it'll look a little better, but you can even see how distressed it makes it look. So, and we're just going to redo that with the other parts. All right, so it is the next day, and I gave all night to dry. I sealed it with some matte finishing spray, and I really like how it turned out. Eventually, we will go back and we're going to paint all the tentacles and do our epoxy cover, or our high gloss cover for it. But yeah, look how it filled in all these little nooks and crannies and everything. Looks good. We're essentially going to do the exact same thing with this part now. I will show you too, the kind of metallic blue I used on the stained glass, or the glass, I think worked pretty good for being solid, not being like a clear. I just used this kind of, where's that? This like sparkly blue. They look pretty good. And then we're going to grime up all this and move on. I got the bases printing. We're making progress. I think we're going to get it done this week. All right, so big moment. There are a few little things I need to get printed, like some more tentacles, but most of it is now done with the 2 parts of the massive base. There's my hand, just to tell you how big this base is. So you can see here, it comes in 2 parts. For whatever reason, it kind of warped a little bit. Look at that. In the curing process. I think it's just because this is really thin. I maybe should have made this wall a little thicker here. So those 2 pieces go in, and as you'll notice, there's a heavy gap there, and we got a decent amount of, some little spurs are still sticking out like there. You know, some of these holes. So my handy dandy, brand new, I haven't even used them yet, just got these little cutter, and we're just going to try to trim all that up so that we can make these fit. We'll glue them. We'll use our new putty tool to kind of mask up the seams, get it primed, and we are well on our way. All right, so here are both parts of our base glued together. I'm not crazy about how wide the gap is. I mean, you can see back here, it gets pretty wide. Some of that is just, I think maybe in the future what I'll do is make the walls a little thicker. They were kind of thin. I think once they cured, that flat of a surface just warped a little bit, and it's hard to get them to line up. But we'll use our filler. We'll get it as clean as we can get it. I already test fit like everything. I'll save you the full reveal, but I kind of test fit it, and it all kind of slotted in and fell into place. So this will work. I was worried that this gap would cause everything to be misaligned and not go in, but I think once it's all together, it'll be fine. So we're going to put the filler in, get that as clean as we can possibly get it, let it dry, prime it, and then we'll get going. All right, so big moment here is we have now got Venom all primed. Here he is, all primed black. So what we're going to start with, I'm kind of nervous about this. We're going to start on the back. I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. We're going to try this out. But what we're going to try to do, I think I talked about this earlier, is do a little bit of a dry brush with something somewhere around here. Where'd it go? Here it is. My messy desk. With this kind of deep purplish blue. So we're just going to dry brush on a lot of this and then seal it. But we want to get like this bluest tint. I'm going to try a dry brush. I don't know if I want to do that or just do shading. I can't, that's the 2 decisions I'm trying to make, is if I want to do like a dry brush or if I want to shade it with like the airbrush into all these muscles. So we're going to do a little bit of experimenting, I guess, on the back, because we can always just prime back over it if we don't like it. And we'll see how it goes. So what we're going to do is we put a little bit of blue paint here, and we're just going to, I know you guys have probably seen this before, we're just going to get a lot of it off down to where it's not as thick. Just going to get it down to that point, and we're just going to try to brush some of it on really loosely and see how it collects into all these different areas. Okay, so something I didn't really expect would happen. I don't know if you can really see it. I guess you kind of can on the video, but the blue's sticking out. But what you don't see is there's almost this like purple, like a chrominescent like shine to it. I don't know. It's got this weird like tint to it. I wasn't really expecting, which looks pretty cool. So I'm kind of happy with it. I'm gonna let this dry. I might have to come back and get some more spots that are a little too black. It's kind of hard to picture where it's hitting and where it's not. But then, like I said, and then I'm gonna have to go. This is gonna take me forever, but I'm gonna have to go through with just a fine brush and put black over all of this, and then hit it with a high gloss. So that is gonna take me a long time to do. So the sooner I can get this down, the sooner I can start painting up all these lines. But you can kind of see the camera here under this light, where the blue kind of grabbed on all these muscle tendons. Like I said, and then in person, it's got this like blue, this kind of purple metallic like sheen to it, which is kind of cool. I like it. It'll look contrast good with the ultra gloss. That's gonna all this is gonna be. So I'm excited about it. Meanwhile, while we're letting that kind of sit, the base is all together. I think we'll be all right with this. Where I mended it, you can kind of see here. It's not great, but it is around the dirt, so I think we'll be okay. Up here, this is all going to be covered by all of the bits and pieces, so that you're not really going to see that. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is work on the base a little bit. I'm just gonna go ahead and just do all the dry brushing, a lot of this stuff that you've seen us do and all the other stuff, grays and stuff like that. But I'm really looking forward to doing this bell. I'm gonna try to do like a bronze oxidized look with some of this and then some copper and stuff like that. So we'll work on that here in a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and just get all the rest of this kind of dry brushed and get it all looking, you know, how the style we've been doing, and we'll come check in. All right, so we're gonna start with just this base of this kind of turquoise. I'm just gonna cover the bell in this first. And I'm actually not even too concerned if it actually goes on and completely covers it, because we're gonna layer this with a few other colors over this and try to give it that kind of oxidized bronzed look. So we're just gonna coat it in this. All right, now for the iconic spider at the center of Venom. Let's go ahead and get it done. Quick update, we have started. You'll notice we can always clean up some of these little messes. It's just trying to be as detailed as possible on this. We also took a first crack at the eyes. So he is slowly developing into Venom. Yeah, you can really start to see some of that purple and blue sheen start to come through on the video here. You can see those little highlights here. Looking pretty good, pretty happy with it. All right, guys, look at how good I think the bell turned out. So what I did is I just came back and did some dry brushed some of the bronze on. And that's really the look I was going for, is to kind of have that oxidized. You're not sure if the oxidized. It's kind of funny because usually the oxidation comes over top of the bronze, but we did it reverse. We started with the turquoise base and then dry brushed over the bronze. But I'm really happy with that. And I'm happy with how the bronze grabbed onto like these higher up ridges. Where maybe like we would scrape off some of that buildup. So it looks pretty good. Under the underside, you can't really see it more, but I did a little bit more bronze, a heavier bronze, because the idea being it's less exposed to the outer elements like the outside of the bell was, so it would likely be a little bit more bronze on the inside. But I mean, when it's on display, you might be able to look up and see there, so I wanted to put a little bit more effort into it. But man, I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I watched a few tutorials on like how to do that, and I think it turned out really good, even better than some of the ones I was watching. So I'm gonna let it sit for a minute. I might come back and do a little bit more bronze. I think these areas could use just another like little run with a dry brush, but overall very happy with how it turned out. Meanwhile, we have finally finished the last thing to print. It's mainly just some more tentacles and things, but finally, every single thing is printed for this project. So this took another 6 hours and 34 minutes. I'm gonna tally up all the time, the entire print time that it took to do all these things. We'll see how it goes. So we are starting on the detail of the profile here. You can see we got our first coat on the teeth and some gum work. We're gonna clean up all that around the eyes and clean up some of the stuff that's running over, but just want to get it laid down as we're starting to come together. The chest is looking pretty good. I was worried that the paint would look a little streaky, but it's looking pretty good. We're just about to go. I need to clean up some of these like threads, either from brushes or whatever in the teeth, but and we're gonna coat the tongue, and we're getting there. We're about to put some yellow. We'll put some thick yellow at the base of the gums, and then we'll use our bone wash on all of it and the nails. Take away that kind of, you know, that look that we want to have. Oh yeah, I also did his little iconic web shooters. We'll get another coat here in a little bit, but just want to catch you up to date that we are starting on the profile. All right, so keeping you updated, you can see here that I just started doing some of the yellowing on the bottom of the teeth. I know it looks really abrupt now, but once we do our top coat contrast paint, it's going to blend those together. One coat on the tongue, we're going to do that. If you notice on the tongue, there's like slime. I don't know what I want to do with that. And if I want to try to do all of that in a different color, there's a lot of it, or we'll see how we go. But other than that, we continue to go. Keep working. Got the gums going, got the tongue going. Looking pretty good. So I decided to do a little pivot. I wasn't crazy about how the gloss was working on the webbing. And for one, it would take forever to do all this. And I just didn't really like how it turned out. So I think I'm going to stick with all the goo that comes off of them staying shiny, but what's on him, I'm just going to leave it because I wasn't crazy. It looks just kind of messy and blobby. I don't know. I might rethink it, but for that, it's all put together. It's pretty much done, and let's get to the full review. So by far the biggest project yet that I've done. Really happy with how it turned out. Tried a lot of new techniques. I was very nervous. Venom sat there for a while before I started painting on him because I was really worried about like doing hand work on the spider logo there. But took a total, final stats, 67 hours of printing. That's all the prints that took, a total of 67 hours. I don't know how much time it took painting and kind of preparing everything. I would easily say probably another 12. So yeah, we're looking anywhere almost about 80 hours total on this guy right here. But man, it looks awesome. I'm taking a little bit of a break. My house is a mess just from this whole project, but thinking about what I want to do next. Got a lot of things on the table. I've got like a Gambit, a Wolverine, I got Carnage, I got a Symbiote Spider-Man, a regular Spider-Man, a Green Goblin. I have a lot of models I want to do. Let me know in the comments what you guys think I should do next. Or maybe if it's one of those things. I also have a really cool Batman, Robert Pattinson Batman one I would love to do too as well. But let me know what you think. Please like this video and subscribe. There's a lot of work to get this thing done. I appreciate it, especially getting the new channel off the ground. If you can give us a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. But thank you, and I will see you guys on the next model.